my name is Narayan Rajan. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Now this is one set of names that I have borne in my life. There are some names that have been called which I wouldn't want to mention here. When I was born, I was named Narayana Swami Rajan. Now, let us have people try to say that name. Anybody want to take a chance? Narayana Swami Rajan, which meant Narayana Swami means the Lord of the universe. See, my grandfather had great ambitions for me. And he called me Narayana Swami was my father's name. This is a South Indian custom. And Rajan was my name. And Rajan means, guess what? Guess what? King. Actually, in my case, they forgot to add the, in brackets, of clowns. Alright, okay. Now that we have started, I will start in the traditional way. Abhivade, Vaishvamitra, Agamarshana, Trayarisheya, Prabharanyuda, Kaushika Gotraya, Apastamba Sutraya, Yajushyaga Adhyai, Sri Subramanya Sharma Namaham, Asmi Bhoho. What I did just now is the traditional Sanskrit greeting of a Brahmin to an assembly. And what it means is like this: the first three names are the names of rishis. So Vishwamitra, that is one rishi. Rishi, or basically a rishi, is an enlightened person. A person who has achieved enlightenment through austerity, through meditation, and maybe good deeds. Okay. So three rishis: Vishwamitra, Agamarshana, Kaushika. Okay. And then we have a further division, and that division is, it's kind of a group to which you belong, which is Kaushika Gotra. In my case, it's Kaushika Gotra. And then eventually you say your name, and this name tends to be different from your regular name. So that's why I said I have multiple names. So this one, Subramanya Sharma, was the name of my grandfather. And Asmi Boho means I salute myself before you. And the posture that I did when I came down is called an Ashtanga Namaskara. That means it's an eightfold prostration, where 8 limbs of my body touch the ground. Okay. I just wanted you to have an idea of what this is. And Indian marriages are hard because the couple has to do this to all the elders, and at that point pretty much everybody is your elder. And that's one of the reasons why Indian marriages last long, because you don't want to go through the same thing again and again. Okay, now let's come to the Hindu view of happiness. Now, the other thing that happened to me was, when I first came to this country, I worked for NASA. And one of the things I had to do was make a paper presentation at a conference. And they wouldn't just let me go off and present a paper because I was representing NASA. So my branch spent 3 days reviewing my presentation. So you had to have, a beginning, you had to have the slides, and then you had to have an ending and conclusion and so on. Now, it's been 40 years, but I have not been able to lose that habit. So if you find it kind of cumbersome, but I can't. So okay, so here we go. First we consider what constitutes happiness. Then we ask, what is Hinduism? What are the tenets of Hinduism? How does it differ? How does it differ from Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam? Okay, and then you ask the key question: does being a devout Hindu increase happiness? Next question is, devotion to religion and the culture of the religion are two different things, or the culture engendered by the religion are different. Okay. So, I describe the Hindu culture in terms of what is its contribution. Okay. And then I ask the question, does it actually promote happiness? That is, if you are familiar with Hindu culture, can you be benefited? And eventually I give you references so that, to all kinds of references, so that you can, if you are interested, you can pursue the matter further. And then we have conclusions, and I hope you have questions for me. I don't promise to answer them, but it would be nice to have questions. Okay. Now we've had talks here before about happiness, notably Professor Smith, David Smith, gave some talks about happiness. And I have to confess that I was somewhat of a pest in his lectures. So how do you define happiness? It's kind of hard to define, but I found two poems that more or less define it. And I think most of you would be familiar with the poems. And one is, how happy is he born or taught that serveth not another's will. And that poem is from by Sir Henry Wotton, and it's from the 17th century. And then we have the poem by Alexander Pope, which says basically, happy the man whose wish and care. Now you'll note when you go through the poems that the poems assume that you already have the necessities of life to a pretty good extent. For instance, like Pope's poem says, if the person who is happy needs to have a few paternal acres. I mean, hey, my grandfather only had 63 cents. You know what 63 cents is? It's 0.63 of an acre. All right? So, what that says is that, you have to have the basic means of life to be happy. Okay. Now, but then, so you have Stoicism, which says essentially no matter what your condition is, you have you grin and bear it. Okay. But that's not happiness. That's manage it. Also, okay, then the question is, okay, so you got everything. You got enough to eat and drink and so forth, and to make merry. But then, if you are a, you have to have the right disposition to enjoy life. If you can't take a joke, you're not going to enjoy life, at least according to me. Right? Like it. And I didn't want to discriminate to either sex, and so I put in a grouch as well. Okay. And then the last one there is, if you have to have a moderate amount of intelligence. Too little, like our DJT or quotas, you're not going to be happy in spite of your money and whatever. And too much intelligence, no, because you're always trying to, trying for perfection, trying to be better than what you are. And this is, no. Okay, now let's talk about, so alright, let me ask, how many of you know about Hinduism? What do you know about it? Good. Tell me.
I don't know a lot about it. I had a book with pictures on it that talking about the world's great religions and stuff.
Okay.
And I learned, and most since then I just from some contact with people. See, I forgot the Hindus. Can't remember which one believes in rebirth as another person, and I can't remember much anything else for the right.
Yeah, no, you'll recognize this. Okay, here we go. Now, first, there is, I need to make an apology. It's an apology here, it's not an apology. Okay, Lynn would know the difference. All right. And essentially, I grew up as, so first of all, I am a Brahmin. So I am a member of the priestly caste. I am on top of the pyramid of caste. All right. And I grew up as a devout Brahmin. At the age of 14, my it's called an Upanayana, which is the equivalent of the Jewish Bar Mitzvah, was performed. And I was taught all the mantras by my grandfather. And interesting thing is that we were not so keen about learning the meanings of the mantras. That was not important. You were just supposed to learn the mantras by rote and repeat them. And I can do that even, today. For instance, there is this prayer about the sun. Suryascha manyuscha manyupadayascha manyo hridebhya papebhyo rakshantam yadaratriya papamakharisham manasa vacha hastabhyam padbhyam udarena shishna Ratri stadamalum yatkincha duridam mai idamaham mamamrita yono surye jyotishi juhom swaha. That is a prayer to the sun god. Okay, and typically it's repeated, it's said in the morning. Because, the sun rises in the morning. Okay. So, but the apology is this, that is, I went from being a devout Hindu, devout believer in reincarnation, in, gods and so on, slowly I have lapsed into a person who doesn't believe in reincarnation. Okay? And you might ask, what right I have to talk about Hinduism? Well, hey, I lived a life and I went through all the phases, so I can talk about it. But I just want you to know that, I don't believe in reincarnation and so on. And I'll explain, when I get to the reincarnation part, I'll explain why I don't believe in it. Okay? All right. The fundamental fact of Hinduism that one of the fundamental facts is polytheism. And so there are, multiple gods, okay, and they are on different tiers. So some gods are more important, then you get the next level of gods and so on. And at the top of the heap, you have the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Right? Okay. Jackie, can you say Vishnu?
Vishnu.
Right, you got it. All right. So Brahma is the creator. In fact, Emerson has written a poem called Brahma. All right. Vishnu is the protector and Shiva is the destroyer. Okay? Now, why out of these, and this then leads to the creation and evolution of worlds. So, Brahma creates the world, the beings. So how does he create them? So, first Brahma created the Sapta Rishi, the 7 rishis. That is the 7 enlightened beings. For instance, how many of you have seen Narada Falls? On the way to Mount Rainier, there's a falls called Narada Falls. And so Narada was the name of one of the 7 rishis created by Brahma out of his mind. Okay. And after he had created the 7 rishis, he said, this is too difficult. I mean, if you have to create everyone out of your mind, that's not going to work, right? So what he did is, then he created man, Manu, okay? And he created a woman, Shatrupa. All right. So when he created Shatrupa, he saw that she was beautiful and he wanted to have sex with her. Okay, so she changed forms to avoid him. She changed to a deer and he changed to a deer. So they had deers. Okay, he changed forms. So eventually Shiva got tired of this behavior and Brahma used to have 3 heads, so Shiva chopped off one of his heads. Okay, and cursed him. So now there is the other belief that you have. In Hinduism, in Hindu mythology, you get a lot of cursing. Right? You just get cursed left and right. And plus, the curse takes effect. That's the thing. Alright. So, and he cursed Brahma, saying that Brahma would not be worshipped in any temple. So that's why when you go to India and you start visiting temples, you will find that there may be 2 temples in which there will be idols of Brahma. Right? Okay. Also, here's the other thing. Creation was not static. What would happen is that the creatures created when, okay, first of all, Manu had a set of laws that govern how you are supposed to behave. Okay, so there are 4 cycles, so there will be, things would go fine for a while, and then Shiva would destroy all creation, and Brahma would recreate it, and it would go on for over and over and over. Right. Okay. Now, not only, okay, here, not only were there gods, there were goddesses. And goddesses of power and strength and glory. For instance, Lakshmi was the consort of Vishnu. I mean, not consort. Basically, Lakshmi was Vishnu's wife. Okay? She was the goddess. She is the goddess of wealth. Very important, right? And Parvati is the goddess of strength, of fighting and so forth. And she is the wife of Shiva. Right? And Saraswati is the goddess of learning. And she is the wife of Brahma. Okay. Now, so that right from the start, from the religion, equal, well, more or less, okay, equal importance is given to women. At least in name, at least in okay. Alright. Then of course we all know about Ganesha, who is the elephant god. Right? Anybody know Ganesha?
What's the question, Raj?
The elephant god. You've seen images of the elephant god?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the elephant god is the god of beginnings. So whenever you want to start a new venture, okay, you want to start a new day, you got to pray to the elephant god. And the prayer goes like this. Shuklam Paradam Vishnu Shashivarnam Chaturbhajam Prasannavatanam Dhyayeti Sarvaigno Vashantaye. What it's saying is, please, you who are so pleasant faced, okay, please remove all obstacles from our path. Right? And we'll give you whatever you want. I mean, we'll have a sacrifice and so forth. Okay. Then there are also demigods. So basically there is a whole pantheon of gods that, they're always fighting with demons and so forth. So, and what happens is the epics and all the Vedas and so forth talk about the conflict between the gods on one hand, or the demigods on one hand, and the demons or the asuras. So I give you a little story. I think it's better to give you a story, and I'll tell you a story. So Vishnu lies on an ocean of nectar. Amrit is called. Yeah. On an ocean of nectar, or Amrit is called. What is this Amrit? It is nectar. You drink that nectar, you get immortal life. Alright, so that means that the devas and the Rakshasas or the demons do not have immortal life as such. They have to drink this nectar to get immortal life. Alright. So they were having a big battle over who gets to churn the ocean for this nectar. And so what happened is, while they were having this battle, Vishnu took the form of a beautiful woman, right, and came down in front of the Rakshasas. So they stopped churning, and they all turned to look at it. And meanwhile, the devas did all the churning, they got the nectar, and they became immortal. So this is the kind of story that you come up with in the Hindu epics. This is one of the stories. There are multiple stories because, for instance, the major epic, the Mahabharata, has 100,000 slokas, a sloka being a two-line couplet. 100,000. That is, it is the size of, it's 4 times the size of the Odyssey and the Iliad combined. 4 times the size. Okay. All right. Then we go on to, this is my favorite topic, is reincarnation, ego and the soul. So, anybody, I mean, people know about reincarnation. What's reincarnation? Right. Huh?
Come back again.
Yeah. Okay, so here. Now, the belief in Hinduism is like this. That is, depending on what you do in this life, after that, you can either go up in the scale or you can go down. Up meaning, so if you're a bird, you could be reborn as a human being. Down means if you're a human being, you could be reborn as an ass. For example. Right? Okay. But if you're a good ass, you can come back as a human being. Right? Okay. So, basically the thing is this. There is a dharma, there is a law which is specified in the literature, in the epics, which if you follow will lead you to progress in life, in the next life. And there is also what is called moksha or nirvana as it's in Buddhism. What that means is if you attain self-realization or enlightenment in this life, you will become fulfilled. You will no longer be subject to rebirth. And also as part of this, you will lose your ego. For instance, the Buddha achieved enlightenment under the Bodhi tree in Gaya, North India. And when he came out from under the tree and came among the monks, some of the monks would not rise to greet him. Because they said he has given, he has forsaken austerity. He has forsaken the penances he was supposed to do. So we don't respect him. And the Buddha replied and he said, monks, it is not meet for you to remain seated in the presence of an enlightened one. He didn't say, it's not meet for you to remain seated in my presence and I am the enlightened one. He referred to himself in the third person, basically indicating that he had no more ego. He would not refer to himself as, me. So that what it meant was that whatever happened to him in some senses was no longer of any importance. And there are statues of the reclining Buddha, where the Buddha leans on his right arm like this on a sofa. And it is at the time of death of the Buddha. All right. And so it's, okay, let's go back to And what is the soul? The Bhagavad Gita and defines, but the Bhagavad Gita is now a part of the Mahabharata. It is in the Mahabharata. So the Bhagavad Gita defines the soul as something that is not destroyed, that is not affected by anything, and that continues from birth to birth and so on. Right? Now, my problem with this whole thing is that if you don't, so when you are supposedly reincarnated, you got no, mostly you have no memory of your last life. Right? You don't have any memory. You don't have the same ego, you got a different ego. So you are a different person, so how come you are reincarnated? And that's why I don't believe it. Okay. Alright. Okay. Now, then you have the rishis. What are the rishis? Like I said, I mean, they are, how it worked was, the reason you wanted to be a rishi was that you, doing the austerities and penances gave you spiritual power. Typically what spiritual power meant that you could curse somebody and they would, it would happen. So you say you become a monkey, they become a monkey. It's a wonderful power to have, right? Now what they did is, there's a downside to it. That was that if you did curse someone, then you lost your spiritual power. And then you had to go back to, more austerity to gain spiritual power. So, and so there was a time, so there's a lot of stories of rishis in the, then there are the books of Hinduism. See, the oldest text or scripture in the Hindu religion dates back from 1500 BC. So you can imagine, they've had 3,500 years to get it right. Alright? And one can argue whether they have gotten it right or not. So how it worked was, initially, so the first 1500, and I'm clapping for myself, okay? So, all right, thank you all for being there.